Education Improvement and Innovation, and I've been working with a group of teachers and administrators over the last year on personalized learning in the state of Michigan, and we've been able to provide some examples of what that looks like in the classroom, what it looks like for the student, and kind of what that looks like in the school also. On your screen now is just the schedule of webinars, and as we record these, we are archiving them in the Michigan Department of Education website, and that is under the Personalized Learning Options tab on the left of the screen when you go to michigan.gov/MDE. We've developed these webinars as part of our work around gathering these vignettes, which were featured in the Center on Innovations and Learning newsletter, their Connect newsletter, where we have a number of these vignettes featured, which was a nice feature for Michigan. And so we thought the webinars would be a nice way to bring some of this to life. And before we get kicked off, I just wanted to share the components of our definitions. In Michigan, we have definitions for personalized learning, personalized teaching, and educational technology. And that personalized learning is what that looks like from the student side. All of the components listed in the box there, such as student choice, making sure that the learning is contextual for students, that it's relevant, that pacing allows students to move at their level, and making sure that students are proficient in the content. And then the personalized teaching is largely that relationship between the teacher and the student. There's the teacher-to-teacher relationship and the student-to-student relationship that goes on. It's highly collaborative, provides a lot of flexibility in how the students learn and how they're assessed, which really promotes a lot of student ownership and moves the teacher to somewhat more of a facilitator role. And then the educational technology, which is those sets of tools that we're able to leverage to get the most out of the instruction, providing access to students and access to teachers, to content around the clock, being able to customize the learning settings, increasing the engagement between student and teacher and student to student, and then being able to use the data now that we have to make decisions about the instruction. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Nicholas Provenzano, and I'll let him introduce himself, and I'll thank him up front for taking time to to participate in the webinar and provide his expertise to us. So Nick, go ahead and take it away.
There we go. Now hopefully everyone can hear me. There we go. Present.
Yep, can hear you now. Yep, thank you.
Yep, can you hear me? Yay, there we go. Technology teacher with a little bit of trouble with technology, right? That's all of us. Hello, I'm Nicholas Provenzano. I am a high school English teacher by trade in Grosse Pointe Public Schools. I teach at Grosse Pointe South High School. I've been teaching for 13 years, and another thing I've been working on is educational technology. I have my master's from Central Michigan University in educational technology, and one of the things that I do is I write about educational technology and its integration into the classroom on my website, thenerdyteacher.com. I tweet about it at the Nerdy Teacher, and I love traveling to districts and meeting with other teachers and sharing all the cool things that I've learned with all of them. So I'm excited today to share with you a great aspect of personalized learning for students, which is something that I've learned and integrated in my classroom, which is the concept of Genius Hour, or as it's also known as 20 time. So I'm going to hit the ground running here with some great tips and insights into what this is and how you can really help personalize, individualize education for the students in your classroom. So the first question that is normally thrown at me is, well, what is it? What is 20 time? Well, it's also known as Genius Hour. So a while back, the company 3M, the people that make Post-its, started a concept of 15% time. They gave their employees 15% of their work time to work on something that they were not assigned but was 3M related. Well, Google came along and really popularized this concept when they made it 20% time. and they actually turned it into this concept where their engineers could work on something Google related, but they were not assigned during this 20% time. And so a lot of great things came out of this concept. For example, Gmail was a 20-time project by a Google engineer. And another one is AdSense. Essentially, how Google makes all of their revenue was part of this project for 20% time. So Gmail, for all of those who have a Gmail, started off as a personal project, a side project for someone to work on. And one of the ways that Google pulls in all of its revenue was also a side project. So this concept of giving individuals the time to work on things that are important to them, that they find interest in, and having it pay off as a big benefit for the whole is something that really intrigued educators. So, like really all cool ideas that are found in the business world, someone takes them and tweaks them for the education world. And so, 20 time in the classroom is something that really started to grow. So, educators took this concept of giving students time to work on personalized projects more weight than they had before. So, mostly teachers at the high school level, maybe at the middle school level, call it 20 time because our schedules are sometimes a little more rigid. And so to give students 1 day a week or one class period of the day to work on something isn't always possible. But for elementary, you might often hear it as genius hour, where it's 1 hour of the day where kids can work on a project or a set period of time. Or at the high school level, we will probably call it more 20 time because we give our kids 20% time of the week of a particular class to work on this project. So I'm not the first teacher to do this by any means, but I'm following the footsteps of a lot of great educators out there that have really taken this concept and put it into the classroom. So who can do it? Well, this is a K-12 process because the great thing about 20 time is that it can be personalized for every student for every grade level. So a teacher can take it and turn it into whatever it needs. So I have seen 20 time Regina Sauer be extremely effective in the elementary classroom. There's a great fourth grade teacher in my district, Susan Howie, who does amazing things with her fourth graders who work on their 20 time projects and design amazing things and create amazing things. So it works great at the elementary, it can work great at the middle school. My kids have done amazing things at the high school level. I've seen amazing things in other buildings across the state of doing 20 time and the great things that they can create. So it really is for everyone, K through 12, to personalize education for the students. So when can you do it? Well, this is the big one. A lot of people want to know, when can you do this? When can you access 20 time and bring it into your classroom? Well, it's really up to the teacher. And you have to know your students to know how well they can work on specific projects. So 20 time can last for a semester. It can last for a full year. I do it a full year with all of my students and it works wonderfully, but it could easily be worked into a semester. It could be worked into a quarter of a year. Every teacher has a different set of guidelines to follow for their school and their district. So again, what makes 20 times so powerful is that it can be individualized per teacher, per school, per district. It's flexible. It's not a rigid program that has to be implemented a specific way. And that's where it actually has its power. So the big question, of course, is, well, how do I do it? How do I fit 20 time into my curriculum? As we all know, we have all these standards and all of this extra testing and more tests to prepare the kids for and building tests and all of these things. So the big question is how? Well, the first step is seeing if you can make room. So one of the things that I did when I started to toss the idea around was to decide, okay, let's pretend like I can make room to do this. What would it look like if I were to give my students 1 day a week? So I sat through and I actually counted it up over the course of the school year, how many days would I need? And so I counted around 35 days, 37 days is what I would need to find to cut out of my curriculum if I wanted to give kids every single Friday to work on a personalized project. So I did that math and I quickly said, well, this is not possible, but let's just see what I would cut out to make it possible. So I started to look at my schedule and my curriculum and my lesson plans. And the first thing I did was cut out all the movies I show. Well, almost all. I left Dead Poet Society because I just can't cut Dead Poet Society. I just love that movie too much, and it's too critical to my lessons. So I cut everything else out, and I immediately cut that 37 days needed to about 20 something days needed because I showed films to represent a lot of the different aspects that we read, and it was pretty standard practice that you just show the film. So it's 3 days here, 3 days there, maybe 4 days here. They're comparing things. So I cut all of those out. So I was like, okay, I'm actually closer than I thought. Then I started to review my lessons. How many lessons were lessons I loved because the kids loved it or because I've just done them so long and I liked it? How many lessons were redundant? So I really took time and saw what my lessons were, what I could do, and ultimately what I could cut. And that's huge when you think about it. So as I worked and moved and cut and made difficult decisions, I actually cut all of the days that I needed. And I actually look at it now as having a much leaner, more potent curriculum than actually having a lot of other assignments that might really have been viewed as busy work. So the next step, of course, is convincing the admins. As we have our favorite superintendent and principal here on the screen, sometimes that can be the toughest part. Some would advise that perhaps it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. And to be honest, that was my initial approach. I did all of this hard work and got it rolling, and then let them know I was doing this really cool project. That might not work for all of you, and that's what I did when I implemented it last year. And I had great support from my administration. I've been so lucky to have a district that's been so wonderfully supportive of these new and innovative ideas. And I think for you as a teacher, it's important to go in excited and passionate and explain how this is going to, change the way that your students are going to look at learning and look at education. So convincing the admins can be tough, but I think it's important to keep them in the loop, to keep them a part of the process, and let them know, again, most importantly, how it's going to improve learning for students. And I think if you approach any new initiative that way, you can get admins on board easily. So Common Core, or really any standard, as we standards come and go and are tweaked and renamed and tests are renamed, there are basic things that students need to know how to do. And when it comes to reading, writing, speaking, research, for me as an English teacher, these are core aspects that no matter what it is called, kids are going to have to do these things. And so with 20 time encapsulates all of those concepts. And I'll go into detail a little bit more, but every class can be tailored for their 20 time to include whatever standards they need. And so for those of you that are in buildings, that are in districts that are really following these standards very closely, and every lesson needs to be tailored to specific standards, 20 time can meet that. The best part is because it's student choice, all the students can meet different standards at different times. And that's the power behind it again. That flexibility really allows Common Core to fit in, or whatever the standards are, to fit in the lesson that you're doing. I always like this photo here. Selling the students and parents. This was actually the easiest part. Introducing 20 time really got parents excited and really got students excited as well. The students were actually shocked at first, to be perfectly honest. They almost didn't believe me when I said, I'm going to give you 20% of class time to explore a passion of your own. The more artistic students were really excited and on board, but some of my type A students were very confused as to what that meant. They're not used to being given this flexibility to explore something they're excited about. They're used to getting assignments, doing well, and moving on. So this, for some of them, was tough to understand, but parents have spoken so highly of these projects and their kids and how excited they've been. And, their kids are coming home after school and talking about school in a way that they've never seen before. So parents were an easy sell for this. And the students, once they understood I wasn't pulling a prank on them, were super excited to engage in learning that could be personalized for what it is that they were passionate about. So for me, when I got started, the core hub of information was a website, 20timeaneducation.com. I highly suggest you check out this website. There's a lot of great resources out there, but this is the one that I use starting from scratch to implement 20 time in my classroom. So as I put together, I really used 20 time in education as the foundation for my 10 commandments of 20 time. So first, every Friday will be designated as 20 time. I love this photo. It's one of my favorite memes. Friday, yes. This is important. You designate a day, or if you are in elementary, you want to designate a specific hour, but you let the kids know that there will be a set day time where 20 time or Genius Hour is going to happen. And it's crucial to not to deviate from that time. There will be times where it'll be so easy to say, you know what, let's just keep having class discussion on this topic. Or, you know what, we need to cover more on this because we ran out of time the day before. You have to fight those urges because once the teacher decides that that time frame, that hour, that day, is okay to miss, the students will start to believe that, oh, well, can we just do this or can I just do science homework instead? It's important to stick to that time. And as we know in the harsh Michigan winters, we miss school days, and it is so tempting to just get rid of a Genius Hour day, a 20 time day, and say, I need to catch up. I fought those instincts hard and stuck with it, and it really paid off. Those students valued that time and would work on their projects and work on their blogs or work on their speeches, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But you need to place value on this time, on that day. And by doing so, you're modeling that for the students, that value, so they will value the time they're having working on their projects. So every Friday for me will be designated 20 time, but it could be a Wednesday for you. It could be 1 hour every other day. So again, you get to decide what that time will be. And, sometimes talking to the students and having them put in their input for that is also valuable. You may work alone or with a partner. The look you give your friend when the teacher says find a partner. It's important to give your kids as many options as possible. As Greg showed in those slides about what that learning looks like, options are so key. And, sometimes students want to work in groups and sometimes they have similar passions. So encourage them to work solo or to work in groups is great. You want to give them opportunities to explore anything that comes to mind. And that might require 2 or 3 people working together to create something amazing. So make sure you give your kids the opportunity to know that project work is okay and encourage them to explore all those different aspects of a project and how working together is key. And teaching the students those collaboration skills are crucial. This is an important skill that they need to understand and work on as they move forward in their schooling. So choose something new to you and something you are passionate about. Find your passion. That's extremely important for students to find what it is they are passionate about. So for some kids, this is the most confusing thing because no one has ever asked them to do that. As a teacher, it is heartbreaking. My first year doing this, I had a girl come to me almost in tears after weeks of thinking about it saying, can you just tell me to do something so I can do it? They have been so trained to just do the worksheet, to just complete the work, get the grade, and move on, that when they are faced with this type of critical thinking and type of concept of what it is that you want to do, it confuses them. It scares some of them because it's so foreign to them for a teacher to say, what do you want to learn? That's not the way the educational system has been set up for them. And it's sad. So it's really important to give these kids these options because they're going to face life situations where they're told, well, why don't you approach this from a new way? Why don't you think about this and let me know how you want to handle it? We need to set our students up to be successful in all different types of situations, not just drone work. And so giving these kids these opportunity, afford them this chance to explore the things that matter to them and potentially find out what it is they want to do moving forward. And that's the beauty part of 20 time. So one of the ways I did that is that I actually had kids use a great website called Today's Meet, where they actually placed all the things that they wanted to do. And here's an example from this year, back in October, on Halloween, as you can see. all the different things that our students wanted to do. We have one that wanted to write a musical. The package includes a few scenes along with musical numbers and hopefully compelling overall story. My project is I'm going to write a book. A student wants to create a YouTube channel. Learn how to sail. That is a very Gross Point specific project, but I guess anyone that's on water could do that. I'm learning ukulele. I want a project as a nonprofit embroidered baseball hat company that donates to Feeding America. The best part of that is that today she showed me her hats. She finished her hats and she embroidered them and she got them for a group of students that had ordered them. It was just an awesome, exciting day that back on October 31st, she had this idea, and today, all the way in May, she had hats to distribute to kids and to donate to Feeding in America. It was a beautiful situation. So, giving students the opportunity to explore all of these different things and then share it with one another was so powerful because everyone was so supportive of everyone's projects. So, as you kind of saw, some of that is produce a product or achieve a goal. So they need to do something, and that can be learn an instrument, create a nonprofit, again, create the hats, write a musical. So, for students to help keep them focused, it's important to have something like produce a product or achieve a goal so they know specifically where they're going and how to get there. So I found that to be a powerful aspect of this is that you're letting students know that they need something at the end of the line to work towards because sometimes kids will wander, sometimes will get off track. And so as a teacher, it's valuable to have this goal or this product so that you can point kids to it and say, hey, this is where you're working towards and this is what you're accomplishing. So produce a product or achieve a goal is very valuable. So complete a 20-time proposal sheet by October. So I put together a quick sheet, and it really has this little aspect here. Last name, first name, period. If they have a Twitter handle that they're going to use or an Instagram handle that they're going to have, their blog address that they'll create. We are a Google Apps school, so we created bloggers for the students based on their Blogger account. If you do not have access to Google EDU, you can use Kid Blog is a good one, WordPress. There are great free sites out there and safe sites that students can use to create their own blogs. They provide a project title and a project description. So this was me learning to this project, and I'll share it with you. So the first year I did this, I totally used these sheets, and the kids did them, and it was great. They were super organized. And this year I thought, you know what? I don't know if the kids really found these useful. So I didn't use them this year. And I found that the kids were a little more disorganized because they didn't have these project sheets and I didn't have them uh, in discussions with them. So I tried it 1 year without and 1 year with, and I have learned that these are a completely integral part of the 20-time process. It helps for the students to see their project description, their title written out. And when they submit it to me, we can have a full conversation. So I tried it with and without, and I was blown away by how more valuable it was to the process than I had initially thought. So it's one of those things where even as teachers with doing 20 time, we try things and we fail, and it's just important to reflect and see where they go. So next year with 20 time, these will be back and strongly emphasized to the students. Choose a mentor. So this is a huge part to this project because as teachers, we can't be everything to everyone. I know we try and it's exhausting and it's why summers are so valuable because we're spent, because we have to be almost everyone we can to all of our students. For 20 time, it is not possible. These students are choosing so many diverse projects, it's not possible for me to be a mentor for all of them. So I encourage the kids to go out and find a mentor. Now, this could be anyone. This could be mom. This could be dad, an aunt and uncle, grandma, grandpa, brother, sister, another teacher. Um, it's encouraging the kids to go out and find experts in the field that they are working on so they can have someone that can support them, answer questions, provide the feedback they need that you as a teacher cannot do because you have X number of students that are also doing projects and you're also working with them and teaching other lessons and things like that is for the curriculum. So The mentor part is encouraging kids to explore and find people, and it's been so great. I had one student who wanted to build a boat, and he decided to work with his grandfather, who was going to be his mentor, who was an engineer for NASA. And the story that he has told about the bond he has formed with his grandfather over this project as the mentor has changed the way that he looks at family, and he looks at older citizens and how valuable they are and the information they have and the history that they can share with us, all because he chose him as his mentor to work on this project. So emphasizing this important aspect is great because kids now have the opportunity to connect with others that are experts in their field. And it's something important for kids to do because, again, as I said, teachers can't be this person to every single student in the classroom. So reflect once a week on your blog. So my students need to have a blog and they need to reflect on it. So at the start of the first year, I had students blogging every single week. At the midway point, I asked the students to reflect and give me feedback on how it was going. And they said I should switch it to every other week because sometimes there were just weeks they didn't have anything to write and they felt the pressure. So I switched it and they were shocked. Like, you can do that? I go, yes, I can do that. I'm the teacher. We're learning along the way. So second year, I kept my students to every other week. That's how we started, every other week. I thought the feedback was great and the kids were going to do that. And now as this year is wrapped up, some of the feedback I've gotten from students this year is that every week would have been better, would have kept us even more focused. So as a teacher, it's insane / frustrating to get 2 different years, 2 different suggestions, and you're like, arg, what is the best answer? And I think, as always, for us, as teachers, it's important just to listen to our students and try to adjust on the fly based on what is best for those students for that particular year. So for me, I will keep better tabs on how much they want to blog and how much they think is effective, but the kids are surprisingly honest. Now, for you, if you're doing a much smaller, like a semester or just a quarter, so maybe 8 weeks, 10 weeks, you might want them blogging every week because it's a short period of time, their project is shorter, and you want them updated. If it's longer, like mine, maybe half and half, every week for the first semester and then every other week as we get closer, or flip-flop it. But the blogging aspect is key because the students need to reflect on their work. And I think, as we all know in education, reflection is so important. It's the only way we can decide if what we're doing is working or if what we're doing needs to be fixed and adjusted. So as we look at blogging, it's not just ramblings of a teenager about their homework. It's an in-depth look about their project and what they think about it and what they can fix and what they can grow. And as an English teacher, I want my students to grow. And if I can get them writing and thinking and commenting and interacting with other students, that's key. And that's been one of the best parts about the blog is that I've been able to share it out on Twitter and have other teachers and other students from around the world read my student blogs and comment on them. And they come in so excited, Mr. P, I got a comment from Texas. I got a comment from California. I got a comment from Denmark. Someone from Denmark is reading my blog about ukuleles. That's crazy for them. But creating a wider audience is key for further student engagement. Sometimes students do not put in the effort because they feel like they're just writing for their teacher and that doesn't interest them. However, if they feel and know that their blog is being read by people all over the world, all of a sudden they really, really, really care about their grammar. I had a student come to me and say, Mr. P, someone from Maine read my blog. And I said, oh, that's great. And he goes, no, I understand. I had like spelling errors in there. I go, well, I know, we make mistakes. He goes, no. So this person here saw the spelling errors and now they think I can't spell. And I said, hey, I read your work and sometimes I think you can't spell. And the kid just looked at me and said, oh, you just don't understand. It's totally different. And like walked away all frustrated because I couldn't understand what they were talking about. But in reality, it's just the example of why it's important to have kids have this global audience because they just have a different viewpoint. And sometimes just having their friends read their blog and comment can make a difference because they are no longer writing for an audience of one, the teacher. They're writing for an audience of many. And sometimes that little difference is what can make or break a student diving in depth into a blog post. into reading, into writing and research. So that aspect of it has really stepped up and really surprised me in how much my kids not only love it, but how much they're gaining from it long term. A pretty standard one, almost for any project that we do, is meet with me when you're stuck. Students need to feel comfortable with this process to stop, reflect, and then see their teacher if they need help. And this has been an important part of 20 time to jump into those kids and say, hey, what's going on? Because sometimes they're still nervous and they don't want to feel like a failure. They don't want to express that they're having trouble. So sometimes they're not as forward in asking for help. So as a teacher, as a facilitator, it is really your job to kind of pay attention by reading the blogs and commenting on the blogs and reaching out to them when it looks like they're having a hard time. Because sometimes just a voice saying, how can I help, can motivate them through an obstacle. So at the end of 20 time, one thing that I have always done and made, always done, it's the second year, is have my students share what they have learned in a speech. So I had modeled this off the TED style talks from TEDx. And I didn't want students to just share what they did. I wanted them to focus on what they learned over the course of the year. Now, this is key because to have students think about what they learned and not what they did, they're diving into a different aspect of education. You're asking them to stop and critically think about what did they learn over the course of the project that they chose. And so the final 20 times talks for this year have just about wrapped up. And the things that students are learning, I mean, some are talking about procrastination, but some are looking at about the power of the individual and how important it is for them to find out who they are. And this project helped one student yesterday, they did their speech, and they moved people in the audience to tears because they talked about how this project where they were writing and they were writing poetry, I want to do a book of poetry, that this entire project helped them discover who they really were in relation to their entire family and their friends and their school. And it was just this beautiful, powerful talk about what they learned that really had nothing to do with writing poetry. It had everything, but also nothing to do with it. So as these students think about what they learned and they look at their blog post as a reflection to see what they learned, sharing what they learned at the end, while it might have scared some of them, really gave them a different perspective on learning in general. And that's key. You really want to see personalized learning, this individualized approach to learning, have something bigger for the students than just, oh, I learned to play the ukulele. You want them to focus more on what did they learn about the process of learning something. I feel if students can understand that, they can learn different things much more easily now that they have a better understanding of how they learn and what they learn. The most important one out of all of this, all of 20 time, of all of the 10 rules here, the one that I impart to them and remind them of consistently is that the biggest success stories are built on a foundation of multiple failures, and that is from a student from last year, Leonie Leslie, and that failure is an option. They are not graded on whether or not they succeed in their task. I want my students to choose gigantic concepts, things that have a likelihood of failure. Students are not told this enough. Everything in the educational system is based simply on their success and their failures. Homework and tests and all those things. And I know, my kids still do essays. They still do other projects where they get graded, and those grades determine whether they pass or they fail. But a project where students are going to invest their time, where completion of the project, the success in accomplishing their task, is not held against them if they don't do it. Allows them the opportunity to take great risks. And in education and in life, great risks can lead to great innovation, to great success. So reminding my students that they can choose something big and they can fail, that it's okay, really scares some kids, but then it really excites others. And the students that always take the safe route, they always choose something that isn't as difficult or scary. At the end of the year, the past 2 years, I have had those students say, I really blew this opportunity. I really should have gone after something far more difficult. Because seeing all the other kids do those crazy things and even fall short makes me wish I would have tried something far more difficult. So I remind my students consistently that failure is an option. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Keep working. I'm so proud of you because they're choosing complex things. And if it doesn't work out, it's okay. They can still be successful because at the end, they're not talking about what they did, they're talking about what they learned. And I think as teachers, we all know that failure is one of the best teachers out there. And if they can learn from failure, that's what we want to see our students do. So part of implementing all of this is that there's definitely technology that makes this happen. So I definitely want to share some of these tools that I've used to make this happen. Blogging. So Blogger has been great for me. KidBlog is another one for elementary. If you don't have access to blogs or your district has certain rules or guidelines in regards to access that the public can have to student written work, KidBlog is great because it can be completely locked down to the outside world, or it can be opened wide up for the entire world, like any other blog. So KidBlog is great if you're unsure of school policy and what can be open, what's not. And Blogger is great if you're a Google school, the blogs are ready and the kid just needs to click create blog, give it a title, and you're good to go. So blogging has been instrumental in getting my kids to share what they've learned, and here are just some examples. So one is I want to grow as a person. So what's great about this, and my slide, click exit to screen full one, my slide just disappeared and I don't know why. I was sharing difficulties right now. Oh, there we go. Sorry. There we go. We're back, I think. There it is. I don't know if you guys have my screen again. That was a weird. I don't know if you guys have my full screen again. Oops. I will pick up where I left off. My computer hiccuped. Present. I'm hoping you guys have my full screen. No? Anyone chime in to let me know? Randa's fear. I'll just keep going. She left this on her blog. I want to grow as a person and not let fear stop me from doing anything that I want to do in my life. And I want to live life freely and have no tribulations in my way. Miranda's project last year was I wanted to do something that scared her every single day. That's what she wanted to do. And I said, well, that's kind of fun and interesting. You want to like challenge yourself to do different things and get out there. That's fun. You're a quirky kid. And at the end of it, she says, I want to grow as a person and not let fear stop me. I mean, that's exciting. You know, that's what she learned at the end is that she doesn't want life to get in the way of her experiencing life. She doesn't want that fear to stop her. Hannah had a great one. I'm glad I'm having these experiences now that are continuing to shape what I'm passionate about and ultimately what I end up doing for the rest of my life. Hannah's project was to do a suicide prevention walk. And she wanted to raise money and awareness about teen suicides. And last year, she held a walk at the school and she raised almost $10,000. This year, she held the walk again. Even though she was not in my class, she worked and put this walk on, and she raised, I believe it was close to $8,000. So she has raised $18,000 in 2 years because of a project in class. You know, when I look at things like that, it blows me away. It makes me so proud of what these students can accomplish if we just give them the time. Remind is a great tool. It allows teachers to communicate effectively to parents and to teachers and administrators and parents and students without needing or having student information, student phone numbers and things like that. So I could remind students about their blog posts. I could remind students about the work that they're putting in. and when it was due. So Remind was a great tool to keep students um, aware of the things that were going on with the project and 20. Great ones out there, and I show them to students on those Fridays to inspire them. Sir Ken Robinson's whole talk about creativity in schools is a wonderful talk I share with my students to get them motivated, to get them thinking about creativity and education and where is it going, and how does 20 time fit into this. So these are really important questions, and TED videos are fabulous at having sometimes the tough conversation, and they can really do a great job at starting that conversation in a classroom. So definitely check out TEDx videos, because what they led me to do was basically start my own 20 time project, which was TEDx Grosse Pointe South HS. So what I did was, and what any teacher out there can do, is apply for a TEDx license. So what this does is gives the holder, in this case the teacher, me, the opportunity to host a TEDx event, to have people, anyone you want, give TEDx talks. So I thought, oh, this will be fun. I'll try it. If I don't do it, that's okay. It's failure. It's just what 20 times is about. So I was trying to model this for my students. Well, to my surprise, last year, I was approved for the TEDx license in January and said, hey, you've been approved. Congratulations. It takes usually, 9 to 12 months to put on a TED event, and I only had 6. The students rallied behind this, and they put together an amazing TEDx event where all of these students got together, and we had 20 speakers give some of the most amazing talks I've ever seen. I know I'm biased because they're my students, but I wholeheartedly believe that. They got up there and they shared their passion with the world. And it was this amazing opportunity for kids to share things that they were passionate about, things that mattered to them. So one example here, and I put the link to the entire TEDx GPSHS playlist, so you can take a look at all of those down there if you want. This was Lucy. Lucy Stoneleigh came to us from South Africa, but she's Canadian, so she spent a year in South Africa, then came to us in Grosse Pointe, and now she's currently in China. Her dad travels for work, and that's where she is this year. And she came to us and she wanted to do photography, and it was such a beautiful story. And she wrote this great post where she wanted to do photography to find out what Detroit is really like. And she had heard all of these things in South Africa, and people were warning her about the city, and she's like, I need to explore it myself. And she grabbed a camera, and as a way to also spend more time with her dad took her downtown, and she took all these beautiful photos. And she won awards and had her artwork featured at the Detroit Institute of Art. And it was amazing. It was beautiful. It was so great. And at the end, she gave this beautiful talk that essentially was, I've realized that I want to be a photojournalist. That is what my passion is. And she said, I travel so much, I don't know if I ever would have discovered that without this. And she learned so much and got some of the most beautiful photos that I've ever seen. And she got all these great photos of the Heidelberg houses before many of them were burnt down in arson attacks last year. She got some of the very last photos of those buildings, and they were wonderful and they were beautiful. And here she was exploring something that was passionate for her, and it turned into something amazing. So as we look at this, why 20 time? Here's a great quote from Picasso. Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up. And I honestly feel that so many of our students love learning when they start school. I just don't believe that there are all these students that just don't like learning. I just don't like learning. I don't like learning. I have a son, he's 4. He is a voracious reader. He loves learning new things and he has all this passion and he's building with Legos and playing with toys and he has all this creativity. And we were all like that. We need to get back to that time in our life where kids were allowed to explore things that mattered to them. There is room for it in every curriculum. We just need to, as teachers, take the time to find it. Let our kids be the artists that they were meant to be, because it's so valuable to give these kids something to strive for, something to work on, because education is not always going to be fun. It's not always going to be easy, but we need to give them those things to hang on to. And when we personalize their learning, when we allow them to individualize what it is and that they want to learn and how they want to learn it, it gives them this control and ownership, which gets them buy-in, which gets them learning things that they never would have learned or done on their own. This is Randa again, who had the project of doing something that scared her. This was in her final post at the end of the year. A year ago at this time, I wasn't even attending school and I was doing my schooling from home because of fears I had getting in the way. With your help, I got over those fears and much more. Sure, I still do have fears, but now I am not afraid to try and conquer them. What I found out after the fact when I talked to her was that she was homeschooled because she had severe anxiety and these were manifesting in fears and interaction with people. And so she was new to our high school and this is what she was doing for the first time. And she chose a project about doing stuff that scared her. I went to her and said, Branda, oh my goodness, how I would have approved this if I would have known. She's like, you didn't know? I go, no, I had no idea. She goes, oh, well, I'm glad you didn't know because I got to do it and it totally changed me. Like I'm not worried about these things anymore. And she wasn't. She did the funniest things. She learned to do a cartwheel on the front lawn. She held a turtle for the first time. She handed out stickers to random students in the hallway. She sat at a different lunch table with strangers. That is something as adults we are afraid to do. And she did it. And she's like, it wasn't so bad. I survived. What's the big deal? Definitely take a moment to watch her TEDx talk in that previous link that, again, you can find there. Because she is on there and her talk is so powerful. So, the last thing I'm going to leave you with is if not you, then who? If not now, then when? As teachers, we are on the front line. We are the ones that have to take these initiatives and run with them and get our students on board and get our administrators on board because we can't wait for this to be, dictated to us from a high and then implemented when we don't know what's going on. Teachers have to take the lead and do what's best for our students. And 20 Time Genius Hour is great because every teacher can tweak it and change it to fit their students and their classroom. If it's not going to be you, who is it going to be? And if it's not now, then when? This is the end, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the very scary photo there at the top. That was a present I got from a student at the end of last year. She's a art major at the University of Michigan right now, and she wanted to make me a present for always supporting her art ever since she was a freshman. I never thought I was doing something super crazy supportive. I just kept saying, hey, that's cool. All right, good job with that. She said she wanted to make me a present. So one day she came into class and she took measurements of my head. I had no idea what she was doing, and she took some photos. She's like, don't worry, you'll like it. On graduation day, she walks in cap and gown with a box and says, here, set it down, don't open it that way. So for anyone who's seen the movie Seven knows if you get a box, your response is, what's in the box? Well, it was my head looking up at me, just like that. I just lost it. I was laughing so hard. The card was even sweeter and probably even more valuable. But, the reason I share this with 20 Time is this was a student who found their passion, and my job as a teacher was to simply encourage it. I had no idea where that was going to go, and it led to her going to U of M and going to art school, and with me with a shot zombie head of myself that I give my classroom now. But it's so important for teachers to encourage students to follow their passion. And I want to encourage all of you out there to take a minute to think about how you can work this personalized, this individualized learning into your classroom to support teachers, because I really think that they can do amazing things if we can support them as teachers. So thank you guys for everything. And if you ever have any questions, you can reach out to me at the Nerdy Teacher on Twitter, or check out my website and let me know if you have any questions. And on Twitter, if you follow the hashtag 20time, you will find tons of amazing resources out there as well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Nick. That was great. Do we have any questions? I see one question in the chat from Joe about the school's privacy policies with Blogger.
Yeah, I can address that. So for my district, so when my kids set up their bloggers, I make sure that it's first name only. So, and I kind of go over the standard, don't take a picture in front of your house with your address, or, don't post a phone number, those type of things. So, again, at the high school level, that isn't much of an issue. Again, at the elementary level, again, as long as there's no, personal identifying information, that's been fine. And I think as we've moved forward with technology, some of those older regulations have fallen by the wayside with all these kids with their own Twitter accounts and things like that. So the blogger policy hasn't been an issue in my district, but again, every district is so different. So I don't know if the state has guidelines or suggestions, Greg. I don't know if there's anything like that out there for districts to follow.
Yeah, I think this is no. That's a lot of this is local district policy. So, working through
Yeah.
school boards, administrators, that kind of thing, and the technology folks too. I think you're right. I can remember being in the classroom, and we actually had very little that we could access sometimes. But I think that's it's certainly gotten better over time. So I think it's worth a conversation if those are some of the issues in the school to talk about kind of the benefits and that kind of thing. While we don't have a policy, I think we're always happy to kind of talk to folks and field questions about why it's important to give access to content and to give access to some of this interactivity.
Yeah, I have found that when there are policies or no policies, it's good to get in front and help write the policy. So if you're a teacher with a an initiative to do these things, and they say, well, we don't have a policy on that, volunteer to write the policy, because then you get to do what you want because you've written the policy. Or call into question and say, hey, it's time to review these. And I have found, again, my district has been great to work with as we've worked to rewrite those and to reassess some of these older policies that had things like the World Wide Web or MySpace written into them. So they really might be late, it's never too late to reassess policies, because with technology, every few years, it doesn't hurt to dive back in and say, oh, this is new and is not covered, or okay, this wasn't as scary as we thought it was, and now there's an education application that obviously we need to use. So I think it's always good to review those policies so that the district can stay current, and teachers can stay current in using all the tools available.
Yeah, I would agree, and I know that we're working on a new state technology plan, and so that if that's of any help,
Yeah,
then that
absolutely.
will be out this year. So
Nice assessment.
okay, and then
So the two
yeah,
things that students were assessed on were their blogs. So they were graded on completing their blogs and showing reflection, and then they were graded on their talks at the end about what they learned. And they were provided a rubric that I got from a speech teacher, as a matter of fact, that they're provided at the start of the year. So those are the two major things that they're assessed on, is their writing and then their speech. So as an English teacher, it fits perfectly into my curriculum, writing and speech. So those are the two major aspects. So even if they failed their project, if they can talk about what they learned from the failure or write about their project and its issues on their blog, they can still earn all of those points and be successful, in the traditional sense of school. But the actual project itself, whether they complete it or not successfully, is not something they're graded on.
Yeah, thanks. And I know this is kind of a shift from what I understand, because sometimes students are out there learning things in their 20 time, or learning things outside of school, and it kind of poses a new way of assessing students and determining what they know. So we're not just delivering content again in a more traditional method.
Absolutely.
And that kind of thing. So it's really nice to see some of these examples out there and how teachers are doing this. So.
Will this recording be available? Yes, it'll be posted.
Yep, we will have it up on our Michigan Department of Ed website probably by
Cool.
tomorrow. So, all right. Any more questions from the group?
Looks like no.
Okay. Looks like we're good. So, Nick, thanks again. This is phenomenal, and thanks again for all your work throughout the year. I know that sometimes it's a lot to ask for teachers to spend time out of the classroom. So I appreciate all you've been able to do to contribute to the work this year.
Oh, and thank you for having me involved. It's always great to to be able to work and have teachers all working together, because just because they're my students doesn't mean that other students aren't going to impact my life down the line. So I realized that we all want to work. Oh, someone from Australia was watching. Wow, thanks, Vince.
All right.
Yeah, thank you for having me involved, and I'm happy to help in anything we can, because as teachers, we're all on the same team here, so all have the same goal. So anything I can do to help, never hesitate to let me know.
Okay, thanks again. And for other folks on the webinar or folks that might be watching later, if you ever have any questions about personalized learning, you can certainly contact the Department of Ed here, michigan.gov/MDE. Feel free to reach out. And thanks again, everybody, for participating.
Have a great night, everyone.